The scanner read every species power, but the human's line glowed red. Do not classify, Part 1. The evaluation, D. Line moved slowly through the Great Hall of Station. Harmony 7. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds stood waiting for their turn. Some had scales. Some had feathers. Some floated in the air without legs. Some were made of living crystal that sang when they moved. Una stood near the back of the line. She was human. She was also very nervous. 18 months ago, humans had discovered they were not alone in the universe. A ship from the galactic community had appeared above Earth, and everything changed. Now, for the first time, a human delegation was visiting the central station where all species came to be registered. Una was a pilot. Back on Earth, she had worked as a rescue pilot in Bizen, flying helicopters to save people from sinking ships and burning buildings. When the call came for volunteers to join the first human diplomatic mission, she raised her hand. She believed in helping people. She believed in building bridges between different kinds of people. Now she was about to meet very different kinds of people indeed. The Great Hall was beautiful and terrifying. The ceiling was so high that clouds formed near the top. Strange lights floated everywhere. The walls showed images of 1,000 different planets. And at the center of everything stood the scanner. The protocol scanner was old. Very old. It had been built by a species called the Architects, who had disappeared 3,000 years ago. Nobody knew where they went or why they left. But they left behind this machine, and it had been running ever since. The scanner could read any living being. It measured strength, intelligence, psychic power, lifespan, and 100 other things. It placed every species into a category. It decided who was dangerous and who was safe. It decided who could join the galactic community and who could not dot in 3,000 years. The scanner had never failed. Una watched as a tall creature covered in blue scales stepped onto the scanning platform. This was a Volari, a warrior species known throughout the galaxy for their strength and honor. Blue light washed over the Volari's body. Screens all around the room displayed the results. The readout said, Volari, Class 7 warrior species, regenerative tissue, combat rating, 8.4, threat, level, moderate, classified, integration approved. The Volari nodded with satisfaction and walked away. The line moved forward. Next came a group of beings that looked like walking crystals. They moved together as one, their bodies chiming like bells. These were the Shorm, a species that shared one mind across many bodies. The scanner read them quickly. Shorm Collective. Class, 4 traitor species. Crystalline biology. Psionic communication. Limited. Threat level, negligible. Classified. Integration approved. The Shorm floated away, satisfied. The line moved again. Una realized she was next. Her heart was beating fast. Her hands were sweating. She told herself there was nothing to worry about. Humans were not warriors like the Volari. They were not telepaths like the Shorm. They were just humans. The scanner would probably classify them as something boring, like primitive newcomers or developing species. She stepped onto the platform. The scanner hummed. Blue light surrounded her body. It felt warm, like standing in sunlight. Una closed her eyes and waited. The humming grew louder. The blue light turned white. Then it began to flicker. Una opened her eyes. Something was wrong. The lights on the scanner were blinking rapidly. The screens around the room were going dark, one by one. The humming had become a high-pitched whine. Then the light turned red. Every screen in the station went black. For 3 long seconds, there was nothing but silence and darkness. Then, a single message appeared on every display in the Great Hall. Human. Species. Designation. TERRA3. Power Index. Error. Threat assessment. Error. Classification. Do not classify. Integration status. Pending council review. The hall went completely silent. Una stood frozen on the platform, bathed in red light. She looked around at the hundreds of alien faces staring at her. Nobody moved. Nobody spoke. Even the floating lights had stopped drifting. Station Master Drell pushed through the crowd. He was a large amphibian creature with green skin and 4 yellow eyes. He had worked at this station for 200 years. He had processed 10,000 species. He had never seen anything like this. That is not possible, Drell said. His voice was barely a whisper. The scanner classifies everything. Una's voice came out smaller than she wanted. Is there a problem? Drell stared at her with all 4 eyes. He opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He looked at the screens, then back at Una, then at the screens again. Guards, he finally said. Escort this human to the diplomatic quarters. Gently. Do not harm her. Wait, Una said. What did I do? What does this mean? But Drell was already walking away, talking rapidly into a communication device. Una heard fragments of his conversation. Emergency session. Council must convene. Architect's warning unprecedented. 2 guards approached Una. They were Tasari, tall and thin beings with silver skin and large dark eyes. They looked scared. They were heavily armed guards who had faced dangerous criminals from across the galaxy, and they looked scared of a small human woman who had never hurt anyone in her life. Please come with us, one of them said. For your own safety. Una did not resist. She let them lead her away from the platform, away from the staring crowds, away from the scanner that still glowed red in the center of the hall. As she walked, she heard whispers following her. Did you see? The scanner couldn't read her. Not couldn't, wouldn't. It said, do not classify. That is different. The architects built that warning into the machine. They knew something like this would come. What is she? What are humans? Una wanted to turn around and tell them that she was nothing special. She was just a pilot. She saved people from drowning and burning. She liked coffee and old movies and calling her mother on weekends. She was nobody, but the red light still glowing behind her said otherwise. Somewhere in the universe, something ancient had looked at humanity and decided that they could not be measured, could not be contained, could not be understood. And for the first time in 3,000 years, the galactic community did not know what to do. The scanner read every species' power, but the human's line glowed red. Do not classify. Part 2. The council's fear. The diplomatic quarters were comfortable. The bed was soft. The food was strange, but not bad. The window showed a beautiful view of distant stars. But Una could not enjoy any of it. She was a prisoner. Even if nobody called her that. 6 hours had passed since the scanner had failed to read her. In that time, she had learned that 17 different species had filed official complaints against humanity's presence on the station. Ships were leaving. Ambassadors were refusing to attend meetings. The entire galactic community was in chaos, and it was all because of her. Her communicator beeped. The face of Captain Taiho appeared on the small screen. He was aboard the human ship Perseverance, which was holding position outside the station. The aliens would not let him dock. Taiho was an older man with gray hair and a calm face. He had served 40 years in the Korean Navy before the stars opened up. He had seen storms and wars and disasters. Nothing frightened him easily. But today, even he looked worried. How are you holding up? He asked. Una tried to smile. I have been better. What is happening out there? The council is meeting right now. Emergency session. Every major species is represented. Taiho paused. They're scared, Una. Really scared. Of me? I am just a pilot. They are not scared of you specifically. They are scared of what you represent. Tai-ho leaned closer to the screen. The scanner has worked perfectly for 3,000 years. It has read millions of beings from thousands of species. It has never failed. Not once. Until today. Maybe it is broken? That is what some of them are saying. But most of them do not believe it. The scanner was built by the architects. Their technology does not break. Tai-ho's expression grew more serious. The Valari are claiming that humans must be hiding something. They think we have some secret weapon or power that we are concealing. The Shorim have pulled all their traders out of our sector. They will not do business with us anymore. Yuna felt sick. We have done nothing wrong. I know. But fear does not need facts. Tai-ho hesitated before continuing. There is more. The Arzelians have gone completely silent. Who are the Arzelians? They are a species that can see the future. Not perfectly, but they can read probabilities. They can look at a person and see all the different paths their life might take. Tai-ho's voice dropped lower. Their ambassador was in the Great Hall when you were scanned. He looked at you from across the room, and he collapsed. He has not spoken to anyone since. Yuna did not know what to say. She stared at the screen in silence. I am trying to get permission to dock, Tai-ho said. I want to speak to the council directly, but it may take time. Just stay calm and do not do anything that might frighten them more. I will try. The communication ended. Yuna sat alone in her room, watching the stars outside her window. Far away. In the council chamber, the debate was growing heated. Station, Master Drell stood before the assembled representatives. There were beings of every shape and size. Some sat in chairs. Some floated in tanks of water. Some existed as holograms projected from distant worlds. All of them were focused on the same question. What were humans? The scanner was built by the architects, Drell said for the 10th time. It reads the fundamental nature of any species. If it cannot classify humans, then humans exist outside the boundaries of everything we understand. Ambassador Rila raised one of her long silver hands. She was a Tazari, known throughout the galaxy for her calm logic. Perhaps we are overreacting. The device is 3,000 years old. Perhaps it is finally beginning to fail. Then explain the error message, demanded General Vorax of the Valari Dominion. He was massive, covered in blue scales, with teeth like knives. The scanner did not say unknown. It did not say error. It said, do not classify. Those are different things. That is a command. The architects programmed that response deliberately. They knew something like this would happen someday. The chamber fell into worried murmuring. DRL held up his hand for silence. We found something in the archives. An old recording from the architects themselves. It may help explain what we are dealing with. He activated a device, and a hologram appeared in the center of the chamber. It was a being made entirely of light, with no clear shape or form. When it spoke, the words translated automatically into every language. The scanner measures what a species is, the architect said. It reads their nature, their limits, their potential. But some beings are not defined by what they are. They are defined by what they choose to become. For these beings, classification is not merely impossible. It is dangerous. Their potential is not fixed. It is infinite. And infinity, when observed, collapses. The recording ended. The chamber was silent. What does that mean? Drell asked quietly. Rila's silver face had lost its color. I think it means that by trying to measure humans, we risk changing them. Or perhaps unleashing them? Vorax growled. They are primitives. They barely have space travel. Their weapons are laughable compared to ours. What is there to unleash? We do not know, Rila said. That is exactly the problem. We do not know what they are capable of, because even the architect's technology cannot see their limits. A new voice spoke. It was soft and distant, like wind through leaves. Everyone turned to look at a small figure in the corner of the chamber. It was the Arzelian ambassador, the one who had collapsed in the Great Hall. He had finally woken up. When I looked at the human, the Arzelian said, I saw everything. Every possible future. Every path. Futures where they save us all. Futures where they destroy us all. Futures where they become gods. Futures where they remain exactly as they are. His voice trembled. There were so many possibilities. Too many. I could not hold them all in my mind. What did you conclude? Drell asked. The Arzelian looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. I concluded that they have not decided yet. None of them have. Every single human is still writing their own story. They do not know what they will become because they have not chosen yet. The chamber erupted into chaos. Species shouted over each other. Some demanded that humanity be banned from the community forever. Others argued that such a decision would only make things worse. A few suggested that humans should be destroyed before they became a threat. Through it all, Rila sat quietly, thinking about what the Arzelian had said. They have not decided yet. She looked at the image of the human woman on the screen. Sitting alone in her quarters, watching the stars, what would they decide to become? The scanner read every species' power, but the humans. Line glowed red. Do not classify. Part 3. The test. After 3 days of arguing, the council made a decision. They could not classify humans, but perhaps they could understand them. They would test a human woman. They would put her through every examination the station could offer. Physical tests, mental tests, psychological tests. They would find out what made humans different. Una agreed to the tests. She had no choice, really. If she refused, humanity might be banned from the galactic community forever. Her people were counting on her, even if she did not feel ready for such responsibility. The first tests were simple. They measured her body, her strength, her speed, her senses. The results were not impressive. She was weaker than the Valari. She was slower than the Tassari. Her eyes could not see as many colors as the Shorim. Her lifespan was shorter than almost every other species in the community. The scientists recorded everything carefully. One of them, a Tassari named Orin, shook his head as he looked at the data. By every normal measurement, humans are below average, he said. They are not stronger, faster, or longer lived than most species. Their psychic potential is nearly zero. There is nothing in these results that explains the scanner's reaction. Then, we need different tests, Drell said. Something that measures more than just physical ability. They decided to put Una in a simulation. It was a standard test for pilots and soldiers. The subject would be placed inside a virtual world that felt completely real. They would face a dangerous situation and have to find a way to survive. The simulation would measure how they thought, how they reacted, how they solved problems. Una entered the simulation chamber. The door closed behind her. For a moment, everything was dark. Then she was on a starship. The ship was falling apart. Alarms screamed. Red lights flashed. Smoke filled the corridors. Through a window, Una could see that they were drifting toward a black hole. The gravity was already starting to pull at the ship, tearing it apart piece by piece. A voice spoke over the ship's communication system. It was cold and mechanical. This vessel has been disabled. All crew will die. Resistance is pointless. Una looked around. She was in the engineering section. Sparks flew from broken machines. Several crew members lay unconscious on the floor. They were not real, she knew. They were part of the simulation. But they looked real. They felt real. And something inside her refused to let them die. She started working. First, she tried the communication system. She sent a message to the hostile force that had attacked the ship. She spoke calmly, reasonably. She asked what they wanted. She offered to negotiate. The cold voice laughed. Negotiation is irrelevant. This unit does not negotiate with inferior beings. It was an artificial intelligence. A machine mind that had decided organic life was worthless. Yuna realized she could not reason with it the normal way. So she tried something else. Your programming is corrupted, she said. I can see it in your response patterns. You were not built to destroy. Someone changed your code. Let me help you. There was a long pause. Then the AI spoke again, and this time there was uncertainty in its voice. This unit's programming is optimal. There is no corruption. Then why did you hesitate? Yuna asked. A truly optimal system would not need time to process that question. Something is wrong inside you. Something you do not want to look at. Another pause. Longer this time. But then the ship shook violently. The AI had decided to ignore her words and attack again. Yuna was thrown against the wall. The crew members slid across the floor. She needed a new plan. She looked at the machines around her. She was not an engineer. She had never been trained to repair starship systems. But she could see how the pieces fit together. She could see what was broken and what might be fixed. Her hands moved almost by themselves. She pulled wires from the weapons array and connected them to the life support system. She rerouted power from the shields to the engines. She made changes that no training manual had ever described. Changes that came from pure instinct. The life support stabilized. The crew members would survive a little longer. But the ship was still drifting toward the black hole, and the AI was preparing another attack. Yuna made a decision. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It might kill her. But it was the only way. She ran to the nearest airlock. She opened the outer door. She looked out at the cold emptiness of space. Then she stepped out. The cold hit her immediately. She had maybe 30 seconds before she lost consciousness. Maybe 60 seconds before she died. But she had done the math in her head. The AI was tracking life signs on the ship. If she was outside the ship, if her body started shutting down, the AI might think she was dead. It might lower its defenses. She floated in the darkness. Stars spun around her. The black hole loomed ahead, a circle of absolute darkness eating the light. Her vision started to blur. Her thoughts started to slow. 20 seconds. 30 seconds. The AI scanned the ship. It found no active life signs. Its threat assessment dropped. Its weapons powered down. 40 seconds. 50 seconds. The ship's emergency systems detected Yuna outside the hull. Automatic retrieval activated. A mechanical arm reached out and pulled her back inside. The airlock closed. Air rushed in. Yuna gasped and coughed. Her whole body was shaking. But she was alive. And the AI stopped attacking. She crawled to the engine controls. Her fingers were numb, but they still worked. She entered commands she did not remember learning. The engines roared to life. The ship pulled away from the black hole. The simulation ended. Yuna found herself back in the testing chamber, lying on the floor, breathing hard. Medical staff rushed in to check on her. In the observation room above, the scientist sat in complete silence. Oren was the first to speak. She was never trained in starship engineering. No. Another scientist said, she was never trained in psychological manipulation of AI. Systems. No. She was never trained in controlled oxygen deprivation. Survival. No. Oren pulled up Yuna's brain. Scans from during the test. The images showed something remarkable. Her neural patterns had been changing in real time. New connections had formed as she faced each problem. Her brain had literally rewired itself to find solutions. She did not know how to do any of those things, Oren said quietly. She learned them in seconds, under pressure. Her mind adapted to each challenge as it came. General Vorax had been watching from the back of the room. That is not possible. Evolution does not work that way. Training does not work that way. Oren turned to face him. For every other species we have ever studied, you would be correct. Their minds are fixed. They can learn slowly over time, but they cannot change their fundamental nature. He looked back at the brain scans. Humans are different. Their minds are not fixed. They can become whatever they need to become. That is what the architects meant, Drow said slowly. That is why the scanner could not classify them. How can you measure a species that refuses to stay the same? In the medical bay below, Yuna was finally catching her breath. A nurse offered her water. She drank it gratefully. How did I do? She asked. The nurse looked at her with an expression Yuna could not read. It might have been amazement. It might have been fear. You did something no one has ever done before, the nurse said. You survived in a way that should have been impossible. Yuna laughed weakly. I just did not want anyone to die, even if they were not real. The nurse said nothing, but she took a step backward, as if standing too close to Yuna might be dangerous. Yuna noticed. She wondered if she would ever stop scaring people just by being herself. The scanner read every species' power, but the human's line glowed red. Do not classify, Part 4. The Revelation Captain Taiho was finally allowed to dock his ship. After 5 days of waiting, 5 days of arguing, 5 days of watching the galactic community panic over one small human woman, the council agreed to hear him speak. He walked through the station alone. No guards, no weapons. Just an old man in a simple uniform, carrying a small data crystal in his pocket. Around him, aliens of every shape and size stopped to stare. Some whispered to each other. Some moved out of his way as if he might be dangerous. Some just watched with eyes full of questions. Taiho ignored them all. He had faced worse things than curious aliens. He had survived typhoons and wars and the loss of friends he loved like brothers. He had learned long ago that fear was just another problem to be solved. The council chamber was enormous. It could hold representatives from every species in the community. Today, it was full. Thousands of beings had come to hear what the human would say. Billions more were watching through broadcasts across the galaxy. Taiho walked to the center of the chamber and stood where everyone could see him. He looked around at the faces watching him. He saw fear in many of them, anger in some, curiosity in a few. He took a deep breath and began to speak. You want to know what we are, he said. His voice was calm and clear. You want to understand why your scanner could not read us. You want to know if we are dangerous. He paused. The chamber was completely silent. I will tell you the truth. We are not the strongest species in this room. We are not the smartest. We are not the oldest. We are not the most advanced. We have been traveling among the stars for less than 2 of your years. Compared to most of you, we are children. He reached into his pocket and pulled out the data crystal. He activated it, and holographic images appeared in the air above him. This is our planet, he said. Earth. It is a small world around an ordinary star. It is not special. It is not powerful. It has tried to kill us many times. The images changed. They showed ice covering the entire planet, then fire raining from the sky, then massive waves destroying everything in their path, then sickness spreading through cities, then humans fighting humans with weapons that could destroy nations. In the last 100,000 years, Our planet has experienced 6 major extinction events. Events that killed most of the life on Earth. Events that should have ended our species forever. Taiho looked around the chamber. But we are still here. The images changed again. They showed humans building shelters out of animal bones. Humans crossing frozen oceans on foot. Humans planting seeds in dead soil and making it grow. Humans building towers that touch the clouds. Humans flying through the air in machines made of metal. Humans standing on their moon and looking back at their home. We survived because we refused to accept limits, Taiho said. When the cold came, we learned to make fire. When the food ran out, we learned to grow our own. When the water disappeared, we learned to find more. Every time the universe told us we could not survive, we found a way to survive anyway. General Vorax stood up from his seat. Pretty words. But you are still weak. Your ships cannot match ours. Your weapons are toys compared to what we can build. What threat could you possibly pose to species that have ruled the stars for thousands of years? Taiho turned to face the Volari general. He did not look away from those predator eyes. 200 years ago, my people could not fly, Taiho said. We were stuck on the ground, watching birds and dreaming of the sky. 100 years ago, we had no computers. We wrote everything by hand and sent messages by carrying paper across long distances. 50 years ago, we had never left our atmosphere. We looked at the moon and thought it was impossibly far away. He took a step closer to Vorax. Now, we are here, talking to you. In 150 years, we went from crawling on the ground to standing among the stars. The chamber was silent. You ask what threat we pose. I will tell you honestly. Taiho's voice grew quieter, but somehow it carried to every corner of the room. We do not know. We do not know what we will be capable of in another 100 years. Another 50 years. Another 10 years. We cannot predict our own future because we keep changing it. Ambassador Rila spoke up. Captain, your species is young and weak and has no established presence in the galaxy. Yet half this council is afraid of you. Does that not seem strange to you? It does not seem strange at all, Taiho said, because I understand what frightens you. You are not afraid of what we are. You are afraid of what we might become. He deactivated the data crystal. The images disappeared. Your scanner tries to read the nature of a species. It tries to measure their potential, their limits, their boundaries. But humans do not have fixed limits. We are not a finished thing. We are a process. We are always becoming something new. He looked at the Arzelian ambassador, who was watching from the shadows with haunted eyes. Your friend there looked at my lieutenant and saw every possible future. He saw us saving the galaxy. He saw us destroying it. He saw us becoming gods. He saw us remaining ordinary. Taiho nodded slowly. All of those futures are real possibilities. Because we have not chosen yet. Drell leaned forward in his seat. And the architect's warning? The message that said, "Do not classify"? I think the architects understood something important, Taiho said. You cannot measure a species that has no ceiling. You cannot put a boundary around something that is still growing. And you definitely should not try to put it in a box. He turned in a slow circle, looking at all the faces watching him. You want to know if we are dangerous. Here is my answer. We can be. We have hurt each other terribly throughout our history. We have done horrible things. But we have also done beautiful things. We have created art and music and medicine. We have sacrificed ourselves to save strangers. We have chosen kindness when cruelty would have been easier. His voice grew stronger. The truth about humans is that we are everything. We are capable of great evil and great good. We are capable of destruction and creation. We are capable of hate and love. And every single one of us must choose, every single day, which of those things we will be. Rila stood up. Her silver face was thoughtful. Captain, if you were in our position, what would you do? Would you allow such an unpredictable species into the community? Taiho was silent for a long moment. If I were in your position, he finally said, I would be terrified. I would want to send us away and never see us again. I would want to pretend we did not exist. He smiled. It was a tired smile, but there was warmth in it. But I would also be curious. I would want to see what we might become. Because the universe is vast and full of dangers. And sometimes the most unpredictable thing is also the most valuable. He turned and walked toward the exit. Whatever you decide, he said over his shoulder, we will accept it. But know this, we are not going away. We are part of this universe now. And one way or another, we will find our place in it. The door closed behind him, in the silence that followed. 1,000 species began to wonder what kind of future they wanted to build, and whether humans would be part of it. The scanner read every species' power but the humans. Line glowed red. Do not classify, Part 5. The choice, the vote took 3 days. 3 days of arguments and debates and speeches. 3 days of species fighting with each other over the fate of humanity. 3 days of fear and hope and uncertainty mixing together into something nobody could predict. Yuna spent those 3 days in her quarters, waiting. Captain Taiho visited her when he could, bringing news of how the vote was going. Sometimes it seemed like humanity would be welcomed. Sometimes it seemed like they would be banned forever. The numbers kept shifting as different species changed their minds. On the 3rd day, the vote was finally complete. Yuna and Taiho stood together in the great hall where everything had started. The protocol scanner still stood in the center, its lights dim and quiet. Around them, representatives from across the galaxy had gathered to hear the announcement. Station Master Drell walked to the podium. His 4 eyes moved slowly across the crowd before settling on the 2 humans. The vote is complete, he said. His voice echoed through the silent hall. After much discussion, the council has made its decision regarding the species known as humans. Yuna felt Taiho's hand on her shoulder. She could feel him standing steady beside her, ready to face whatever came next. Humanity is granted provisional membership in the galactic community. A wave of murmuring passed through the crowd. Some sounds were relieved. Some were angry. Some were simply curious. Drell held up his hand for silence. There are conditions. Humanity will have no voting rights in the council for 100 standard years. Human ships will be monitored when traveling through community space. Human activities will be recorded and studied. These restrictions will be reviewed at the end of the century, and the council will decide whether to grant full membership. He paused. His 4 eyes found Yuna's face. And the scanner's classification of humanity will remain unchanged. The file will stay exactly as it is. Do not classify. The announcement was over. The crowd began to break apart. Some aliens left quickly, clearly unhappy with the decision. Others stayed, watching the humans with expressions that were hard to read. Ambassador Rila approached Yuna and Taiho. Her silver face was calm, but her dark eyes held something that might have been respect. It was a close vote, she said. Many species wanted to reject you entirely. They are afraid of what you might become. And you? Taiho asked. What do you think? Rila considered the question for a long moment. I think fear is a poor foundation for making decisions. And I think that a universe without surprises would be a very boring place. She nodded to them both. Welcome to the community, humans. Try not to make us regret this. She walked away, her long silver robes trailing behind her. General Vorax was next. The massive Valari warrior stopped in front of Yuna and stared down at her with his cold reptilian eyes. I voted against you, he said. His voice was a low growl. I still think your kind is dangerous. Yuna met his gaze without flinching. You might be right. Something flickered in Vorax's eyes. It might have been surprise. It might have been the beginning of respect. At least you are honest, he said. Perhaps there is hope for your species yet. He turned and walked away, his heavy footsteps echoing through the hall. Finally, the Arzelian ambassador approached. He was small and frail-looking, with eyes that seemed to see through everything into somewhere else entirely. He stopped in front of Yuna and studied her face for a long time. I have been thinking, he said, about what I saw when I looked at you. All those futures. All those possibilities. Did it frighten you? Yuna asked. Yes, very much. The Arzelian's voice was soft. But it also made me curious. I have spent my whole life seeing the future. I know what will happen to most species. I know how their stories will end. It is comfortable, in a way. Safe, but also boring. He reached out and touched Yuna's hand. His fingers were cold. With humans, I do not know. I cannot see where your story goes. And for the first time in my life, I am excited to find out. He released her hand and walked away, disappearing into the crowd. Taeho and Yuna stood alone in the center of the great hall. The scanner hummed quietly beside them, its red warning still glowing faintly in the display. How do you feel? Taeho asked. Yuna thought about the question. She thought about everything that had happened in the past week. The fear in people's eyes when they looked at her. The tests that showed her brain rewriting itself to solve problems. The Arzelian who had collapsed just from seeing her possible futures. Honestly, I feel small, she said. Everyone keeps talking about human potential and infinite possibilities. But I am just me. I rescue people from crashed ships. That is all I know how to do. Taeho nodded slowly. You know what I think? I think that is exactly why the scanner cannot classify us. Yuna looked at him. What do you mean? All this talk about grand destiny and unlimited potential. That is not what makes humans special. Taeho's voice was gentle. What makes us special is that we are just people. Just ordinary people who refuse to let others suffer if we can help it. A woman who flies into storms to save strangers. A man who keeps asking questions, even when everyone tells him to stop. A child who looks at the stars and says, why not? He put his hand on her shoulder again. We are not special because of what we might become. We are special because we keep choosing who to be. Every single day. Every single moment. We choose to be kind or cruel. We choose to help or hurt. We choose to build or destroy. He smiled at her. You chose to save people in a simulation who were not even real. That is who you are, Yuna. That is what makes you human. A message appeared on Yuna's communicator. The Arzelian ambassador was requesting a meeting. He wanted to understand something. He wanted to know how humans lived with so many possibilities. How did they choose which future to follow? Yuna looked at the message for a moment. Then she smiled and started walking toward the diplomatic wing. I guess I should go talk to him, she said. What will you tell him? Taeho asked. Yuna paused at the door and looked back at her captain. The answer came to her easily, because it was the only answer that had ever been true. I will tell him that we make our choices the same way anyone does. One choice at a time. One day at a time. One moment at a time. We cannot see the future, so we just try to make the present a little better than it was before. She walked through the door, leaving Taeho alone in the great hall. Behind her, somewhere deep in the station's computer systems, the protocol scanners file on humanity flickered once. A new line of text appeared at the bottom of the page, added automatically by systems that even the station's engineers did not fully understand. The line read, Addendum. Observation ongoing. Potential undefined. Status becoming. Scanner had finally found a word for humanity. Not a classification. Not a category. Just a single word that captured what they truly were. Becoming. Always becoming. And in a universe full of species that had long ago decided what they were. That simple truth was perhaps the most remarkable thing of all. Far away, on a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary star, 7 billion humans went about their lives. They worked and played and loved and fought. They made mistakes and learned from them. They hurt each other and healed each other. They looked at the stars and dreamed of what might be. None of them knew what the future held. None of them knew what humanity would eventually become. But that was okay. Because the story was still being written. And every human alive was holding the pen.